Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ken Kirschbaumer. I'm the co-executive director and editorial director for the Sports Video Group. We are a trade association that has two. We have two divisions. We have one in the United States, SVG, and one in Europe called SVG Europe. And we have daily newsletters 5 days a week. So be sure to visit our websites, which is sportsvideo.org or svgeurope.org, and sign up for those. And we have lots of events that are free to end users to come on out and learn about various aspects of sports production. We are here today to talk about social video, which obviously has gained a lot of traction over the last 24 months in particular, I would say, right?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Considering we've had a video player for 3 years now, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have two great experts here to discuss the future of social video and answer the question, which is social video the key to your future? Depends on whether it's you, obviously your future, yes.
We hope so.
Yes, exactly.
We hope so. On behalf of Facebook, I say we hope so. Right,
exactly. So let me introduce briefly, we have Rob Shaw, who is Sports Partnership for Sports Media and Leagues. And federations and agencies, and is it everybody basically?
No, I don't have teams and athletes under my umbrella. So
really?
we have Kevin Cote, who leads that group. Yeah.
Okay, at Facebook, and then Johannes Franken, who's head of digital for HBS. Johannes, I'll have you start. Actually, maybe just for the few people in the audience who may not know what HBS is.
Sure,
but give it a kind of update on where you're at as far as digital projects that you've recently been working on with HBS and what's coming down the pike.
Happy to do so. Probably everybody in this room knows Facebook. Probably not everybody knows HBS. We are a dedicated host broadcasting company. That means that our business model is B2B2C video production. We are producing video and media content for big rights holder and federations primarily, and deliver those to their licensees for them to distribute. I personally started in 2005 with a video distribution that was of that size. We called it multimedia products, and it was the coolest product in the world. You barely could see the ball. I think we evolved quite a bit from that, and I'm very happy to be here today and to speak about where we came from and where more importantly, where we are going to. And with those big projects that we are involved in, probably the most prominent one, and for the ones that know who HBS is, will know that FIFA appointed us as the host broadcaster for the FIFA Football World Cup. And for those events, we are producing a wide variety of content. Our purpose there is to help broadcasters and licensees to deliver these sporting events to their fans. The challenge there is that you have this wide variety. And I always quote Fox on the one hand side, where they have a massive team for digital and for social content production. And on the other hand side, you have rights holders like NOS, and I always like to use them because in 2014 they had a team of 4 people working on that. They had an application that every 7th inhabitant of the Netherlands downloaded, and have been so happy about this service, and it was great that with such a small team they could have such an impact. Now, for us, the challenge for the upcoming World Cup and for other events is how can we, on behalf of FIFA, offer such a service to broadcasters of the variety of sizes?
So let's take some of the past events, leaving aside the World Cup, but like the Asian Games and some of the other events. So when you're creating a B to C, what are you looking to deliver to the B? Are you trying to streamline like highlights, for example? You know that everybody's probably going to want the same highlights, so therefore your team pre-packages those for them, or how do you?
So that is, I think, digital strategies are very different from broadcaster to broadcaster, from territory to territory, from audience to audience. And even more differences and nuances you can see within a social strategy. So what we are trying to offer is a tool to streamline the process of the broadcaster or of the rights holder to publish the best content to social networks. For some of them, this is, as you said, 16:9 highlight clips. For some of them, they are looking into super short form video content that they can publish. A lot of them are looking towards us for vertical video or squared video for Facebook. So I think the variety of content items that needs to be offered to make their life easier is very much depending on the outlet that you're targeting. So what we are trying is, for the specific event, we're looking at our customers, in that case business customers, and try to get as close as possible to their strategy to have the best experience for their social media team.
So wait, since this wasn't one of my questions, so I apologize, but you brought it up. So vertical video, do some people do you have to provide both formats to people? Because I know it's a little controversial also. Some people wonder whether you should do vertical video, so how do you kind of approach vertical versus horizontal video? And
as we are very close tied into the broadcast production, and that is 16:9, in most cases HD. But when we are producing content that is specifically produced for social media consumption, we are breaking that up, and we are using some manual and also some automated tools to create vertical videos specifically for those outlets.
So Rob, from your standpoint, obviously Facebook works with a ton of clients, and I've seen anecdotally, like last Friday I was at home on Facebook on my iPad, and all of a sudden I saw that Facebook Live, Jason Isbell, who I really like, was doing a live concert, and for the next 2 hours I'd slung it through my Apple TV up to the screen, and we were watching a concert at home that I didn't plan to watch at all. So give us some examples, I know you probably have a ton, of how sports rights holders are making use of Facebook in a way that kind of complements and doesn't cannibalize, if you will, their on-air rights.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of ways. In the United States, we've rolled out Facebook Watch, which is a whole new surface to consume just video, longer form, premium video. So our relationships and conversations have certainly changed over the last, call it 6 months, as we've been preparing for this rollout, which happened a little over a month ago. So the conversations prior to has always been about Facebook's newsfeed, and that, to be clear, is where the consumption and growth for this company has taken place. It's where you're able to reach the 2+ billion people and the ability to engage with audiences. Now, you gave a great example right there where, that's Facebook newsfeed for you, where you really don't know what you're going to run into when you go there. You're going to find out what's going on in the world. What are your friends up to? What's your favorite entertainers doing? What's your favorite athletes, favorite teams, leagues, so forth? And that's where the intent is to get informed and connected to the passions that you love. What Facebook Watch does, which is a button that you click and suddenly you have a full premium video surface, is very different, because that's where you're going to actually run into, in the US right now, Champions League soccer. And you're going to see a game between PSG against Bayern a couple of weeks ago. You're going to see every Friday a Major League Baseball game. So when you look at the conversations we're having specifically with the leagues, which you asked, I think it's a combination of two. Facebook's a phenomenal place to just reach a massive audience and to let them know how the sport is doing, what big events are going on, the best dunk of the night, and so forth. But in addition to that, we are now looking into and testing the possibility of actually broadcasting a live sport on the platform. And it's going to be a huge learning curve for us, for the broadcasters, for media companies, for the leagues, because it's not television. It's different. It's unique. It's interactive. It's social. It's not a one-way conversation. So these are the things that we're trying to work together with the leagues and gain their feedback, and obviously look a lot at the data of the consumption to understand what we should be building for the future.
So as far as now, how about a traditional rights holder? Like, I know Fox does a lot of interesting things. I remember last year during the Gold Cup, they were using some, shooting their announcers during the game, giving reactions to stuff. So how do you see rights holders who are looking to complement their on-air feed and not feel like they're just, obviously sometimes they can't replicate and deliver it via Facebook. So what are some of the interesting things that they're doing to kind of maximize the Facebook platform? Yeah,
I mean, I think using the Fox example, that's an instance where their broadcast is on traditional television. So they want to just get awareness. That's their pure goal. And what Fox did in a very strong way was a really strong Facebook Live strategy. Now, if your goal is to reach people like that, there's nothing better than live. You literally reach audiences in real time. People get alerts, they get notifications, they come in, and they're able to consume the piece of content right then and there. So looking at Fox over the course of call it a 2-hour game, the Centenario Finals in the U.S., they were able to, have a pregame show live on Facebook. At halftime, they had one of their sideline reporters who did a 2-minute hit on television. He still had time at halftime. He went live on Facebook for 10 minutes answering questions. When the big moments occurred, there were highlights that were posted in real time on Facebook. And finally, at the very end of the game, it came down to penalty kicks. And so they ended up going live on Facebook, and actually, they didn't show the screen. So for that reason, I do want to emphasize, this is very much a second screen experience that they went with here. You couldn't just watch reactions and walk away and feel like you saw the game. What they did was truly program Facebook to be the second screen. So in this instance, they were saying, oh my God, huge plays, and they were reacting in real time to the moments that unfolded. And during that moment, they ended up reaching, I think, 600,000 people over the course of 12 minutes or something like that. And over the course of the entire broadcast window, again, 2 hours, they reached over 3 million Americans. Now, there's not many ways when you're a broadcaster to reach 3 million people and let them know what's on your station. But they did that, and their ratings were the best I believe they've ever had for a soccer match, and hopefully Facebook played a small part of that.
Gotcha. So as far as the live element, right? So, and again, I'll refer to this concert that I watched. If it wasn't live, I probably would not have watched it, even if it had led me to an on-demand stream. So the live kind of hooked me in. So, and then even funnier was after the concert, then I was watching the feed again, and FS1 was promoting a Pearl Jam concert that was being played on the TV. So then I spent another 2 hours watching because it's all through Facebook. But so why does live matter? And should people putting their emphasis on live content creation for social media versus sort of on-demand program? What's your take, Johannes?
For sports and coming from sports and doing primarily sports, live is key. And the closer you can get to live, the better it is. We spend significant amounts of energy on reducing the time span between TV and streams. So the liver you can become, the better it is. We had a test case where we've been streaming faster than TV for the first time, and that raised a lot of eyebrows. So the more live you can get, the better it is. And I think that is the same for every first screen experience. Now, when it's coming to the newsfeed and the real second screen experience, I think it's more to get a broader picture around it. So grabbing attention and informing people about things that happen or things that happen around. And there, for me, is the value of the additional content of teams. What are teams or participants in the event experiencing around what is happening on the pitch? But everything that is happening on the pitch is key in my view.
So wait, so real quick, and maybe Rob we want him to hear this, but how did you manage to get the latency down on the live streaming? So what's the trick there? Is it just less encoding or less decoding, or how do you manage to shrink that?
Yes, it's less encoders in the chain, and when it's HTTP based, and sorry, that's a bit nerdy, it's very short segment sizes and a complete UDP based streaming end to end.
Okay.
And we beat the broadcast of a German public broadcaster by 3 seconds.
Wow. Okay. So Rob, what's your challenge there? Because obviously for something called Watch, your goal is to make it so that it feels as live as possible. So what steps are you guys taking as well?
I think it's going to be a split between live and VOD. I mean, I think when you look at the biggest digital video platforms in the world right now, most of them are not live. You look at Netflix, look at a lot of what Amazon's doing. So I think it's a combination of the two. I think what Facebook does provide is the real-time discovery. I think that we are not the platform that you would necessarily go to for the archive, per se. You're able to, but it's more about discovery, whether it's finding content because your best friends and family members shared it, or whether it's because it's being programmed in Watch. So I think we do have a unique area where we are able to invest heavily in live and see how it goes. I mean, but again, we really need to change the whole production experience of it to account for the fact that this is a social, engaging, live feed that's coming in. But that said, looking at some of the content that isn't live in sports, I don't know if everyone in the audience knows Lonzo Ball and his wild family, but Ball in the Family is a great 15-minute show about a basketball star who is drafted in the top 3 of the NBA draft. His father is a very fun figure who says a lot of interesting things, a little controversial controversial. Let's just say it's a combination of basketball and the Kardashians. I don't know how else to explain it. But that show's first episode got nearly 20 million views. We just launched a show on an NFL star named Marshawn Lynch from Bleacher Report. That seems to be going very well, too. And most recently, Inside the NBA is a very popular show in the U.S. And probably distributed overseas that covers Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal talking about basketball. Well, this past week, they just launched something called Outside the NBA with the same talent, in which they start talking about other social topics outside of just the NBA. So those are examples right there where we are investing in some of the VOD experiences. But what we love about our platform is that the consumption is live. And when that consumption occurs, suddenly you start seeing the social graph. You could go in to watch, and you'll see like suddenly hearts come up with a picture of one of your friends, and that's in essence their review. You know that your friend watched that and had that reaction to the episode. So we're trying to test both, but I do think it's going to be a combination of both live sports as well as some VOD premium content.
So Johannes, just to move beyond Facebook, no offense.
All good.
But as far as I think one of the
we could talk about Instagram.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe what's that?
So I think a lot of organizations struggle with well, first of all, how they should organize their digital team. So, for example, do you use a tool that will take the same content and publish it to multiple social platforms at one time? Do you have dedicated people focusing on different platforms because they're all a little different, and I would argue that their audiences are probably a little bit different too. So how do you evaluate when you look at the landscape currently, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, how do you evaluate where to place the energy?
That is, again, very much depending on the event we're looking at. So we are in very close communication with our customers there and try to understand what their strategy is. Some of them are very Facebook heavy, others are focusing on Twitter quite a lot, and I think both of them, and those are the main drivers in the Western Hemisphere. I think what we've seen, there are a couple of things that happen in common, and that became kind of common sense. You need to create very early on a peak of excitement in your video to stop people from scrolling, like successfully happened. You need to be aware that most of the content is watched on mute. So subtitling in Europe became a clear renaissance in that sense. I know that in the States it's a bit different, but that out of a sudden became super relevant and is very important. But then when it's coming to aspect ratios or formats, how you design the content itself, it is very platform specific. So what we are doing, we having a team that is looking into the various platforms and then optimizes the content strategies for those platforms in very close collaboration with our customers.
Now, how do you keep up with all the new developments like Facebook Watch, or even if an existing platform also adds video capabilities? How do you kind of keep ahead of the curve and keep up to date on what's going on?
So in a lot of cases, we are working together with our customers, and we see what they are triggering. Of course, on shows like this, we get new input of new things that are happening in the market. Some of them become real. Quite a lot of them stay at those shows. And in that case, most of the time, we are working with broadcasters, and they, at least some of them, have a vision where they want to go. And together with them, we are developing those. At the same time, we are speaking with federations that have very clear ideas what they want to develop. And we see that, especially with smaller federations, that they are sometimes even more active than the big ones, simply because their life, I think in many cases, is a bit easier and less driven by lawyers. So we had some very nice success stories with very small federations that worked out nicely in areas where big federations don't want to go.
So given the premise of the session, which is social video the key to your future, do you think it is more important for the smaller federations because it can drive attention to their federation and to their product. And then, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, they all want to have a broadcast deal, right? Or some sort of a deal. Someone paying them a deal, whether it's you paying them a check for content, they want somebody really kind of paying.
I think that's exactly the point. In the end, there is a commercial incentive for all activities. Whether people find a decent revenue stream through social media, or they do that through traditional broadcast deals, that I think is a question that needs to be decided at a later stage. I see a clear tendency, but I think there's content consumption on Facebook VOD, on Facebook Watch, and there is content notification and raising awareness. And I think those, even though at this point we're calling both social video, I think they need to be looked at separately because they serve different needs. The one is the discover need and the other one is the information need. And I also know a lot of people that are on Facebook exclusively to see what their school friends are doing, and they don't care about federations. And so I think it's very important to look at it in a differentiated way of what the fan expects.
So Rob, as far as the social aspects of, you mentioned earlier how the interactive and the social aspect of social services and yours, social video, is, it's important to differentiate it from a broadcast. Mm-hmm. So, and you mentioned the hearts going by. Yep. What do you see as far as some of the interesting ways people are using interactive elements to enhance the video experience as opposed to just saying, yeah, hit a heart if you like this? And
yeah, no, I think we've seen some pretty amazing examples so far. I think there's a couple companies I could highlight. I think Fox Sports, what they've done with Champions League soccer in the U.S. is pretty remarkable. They have a very different setup. You usually have your play-by-play and your color analyst and a sideline reporter. They have play-by-play, color analyst, and a social reporter. And the social reporter basically is keeping track of all the comments that's going on the screen and also going through feed and seeing how people are reacting and responding to big moments that occur in the game. They're then bringing it up, they're discussing them, they're talking about them, and they're even answering questions over the course of the broadcast. So it truly is a conversation between the talent and the people viewing the game itself, which is pretty cool. I think looking at someone like Stadium, formerly known as Silver Chalice in the U.S., they've done some great things with college football where they are, first of all, just even their broadcast, it's the cameras are zoomed in a little bit tighter than you would see on traditional broadcasts. Why? Because 80% of people or more are watching on a phone, that's a couple inches big. So they're doing that. Their graphics are slightly bigger as well. They're encouraging people to post to Instagram different hashtags to be used. They're, again, answering questions and responding over the course of the game in the comments section. Their announcers are asking people during the game for predictions, what they want to see highlighted, what they want to see around the stadium. Again, the concept of the sideline reporter is not about the injury reports. It's about how does it feel to actually be at the stadium. And I think that's the idea, is the closer that we could bring people to the action, the more exciting and the more unique. We want it to feel like you're actually in the arena. And I think Stadium does a really good job. And one quick example I'd highlight is over the course of a game, they started noticing these hashtags by about 5 people saying, using a hashtag like say hi to Katie or something like that. And so finally on air, they said, so who is this Katie? And the person responded, it's a cheerleader for the Wyoming team. So the social reporter went over to the young woman and said, someone wants to say hello to you. You're trending in the comment section during the game. And she started laughing and said, really, who's it from? And they asked, who's it from? And the person commented, it's your father. And she broke down and got really emotional, and we found out that her father was stationed in Germany serving the United States military. And that is something that just cannot happen on television. And they interacted, and he started writing, and the social reporter had helped to have a conversation between the cheerleader and the father, and it was a very special moment. And one other great example was one of the Southern Mississippi was playing the other day on Facebook, college football again, and one of the announcers said SMU. So that's definitely the wrong initials, because we know SMU is a very different school with a very different football program in history. And so he started getting ripped in the comments, like, who is this clown? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Anyway, 2 minutes later, the analyst goes, first of all, I just want to address, I am so sorry. I noticed in the comment section I must have misspoke. I did not mean SMU. It's actually University of Southern Miss. And everyone in the comment section suddenly is like, oh, thanks so much. Thanks for acknowledging it. We appreciate the apology. And again, it's just cool to see this interaction where the audience actually feels like they're not just a person who's watching an isolated event on a big screen, but actually feels like they're there and they're a part of it.
So, given the cheerleader, so if you didn't have if there wasn't a second team that was available to go out shoot that, that moment wouldn't have happened. So do you think is this something that we're going to see also, where they're going to see more dedicated resources towards the social video aspects to kind of, and obviously even the Fox stuff, they needed somebody there shooting them. So what do you see as the impact on production?
I think it's less expensive, to be honest with you, and those are two great examples. So the Fox broadcast, that's happening in Playa Vista. We're watching games that are happening in Europe, but these broadcast is happening in Playa Vista, and that's in California in the Fox Sports digital area. So the point there is that when you actually think about the cost of production, because you're still taking the UEFA feed, it's a very inexpensive add-on, for them to be able to do that. I think when you look at just the way technology is going, things are becoming less expensive in many ways. A lot of the big things, like, it used to be, talking about an on-air talent, and this is more of a newsfeed story, but it used to be, you look at an on-air talent like Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless, and you feel like they have to be in a suit, they have to be behind a desk, and people in the industry knows there's a lot of makeup involved. However, what we've found is when these people hold up their cell phones, when Skip Bayless holds up his cell phone, especially after a Dallas Cowboys loss, there's nothing better. He goes on a rant, he's going nuts, and the audience that he gets is actually better than the pre-produced segments that they typically post. And I think that speaks a little bit to authentic. It's not, the makeup's not there. It's not as polished, but it feels like you're there. He's responding to your questions and comments. So I think that it's going to be a combination of both. There's going to be a tremendous amount of testing to figure out what works, what doesn't. By the way, it's going to be expensive for us. We have to build out this platform. Like, our focus is not necessarily on the content. We want media companies, leagues, and everyone who's better at storytelling than we are to focus on that. We will focus entirely on building community. And if we could create the right tools that make it a more authentic and a natural and really a social experience, then we did our job.
So looking 5 years down the line, I know a lot of people look at Facebook and say, well, Facebook's plan someday is to take the rights and own the rights for the NBA and take rights for this. I always kind of said that you guys have a pretty good business without having to write big checks for rights. But so where do you see Facebook and
That's
Facebook
what our
Watch?
Finance team said too, by the way.
Right, exactly. So what do you see as your relationship, with the rights holders, who can be a little curious if at some point they're going to be competing with you? So what do you see as your role?
Distributor. I mean, it's an interesting. We don't want a war of attrition. I'll start there. We also understand what our specialty is. Our specialty is creating community and the distribution resources. It is very much in our interests to work with the best storytellers in the world, whether you're Sky TV, whether you're Fox, whether you're NBC, ESPN. All these people, all these companies are so good at storytelling. It is very much in our interest for them to come to us and see us as a distribution platform. There's obviously been press and some public news on us being involved in bids. Behind the scenes, we are talking to media companies. It very much is, again, in our mind, there's even a specialization of distributing the content on our platform. There's social managers for these media companies who are very, very good at what they do. They understand how to use the ecosystem, how to get athletes to share, how to get teams to share. Fox Sports, again, the Champions League, they have PSG sharing their game. They have Neymar sharing the game. That is a skill set, and we value that skill set. We also see the brand equity in the broadcast. There's no question about it. There is a feel, and me and you from the U.S. know, the Sunday night NBC is a very different feel than CBS, which is a very different feel than Fox. Everyone has their identity, and I think they're all very much valued. So if we could have those professionals still do the storytelling on our platform simply for distribution, we want to arm them to do so. So that is very much in our interest, and hopefully that's how it plays out.
So for both of you, and I'll start with you on this. So what do you mentioned media managers, social media managers. Yeah. Do you think, is it a mistake to have one person who uses one of those publishing tools that takes content and gets it out to you and to Twitter and everybody else all at once? I mean, how should they approach it? What do you think is the right approach?
Yeah, I hope they don't do that. I think if you look at some of the best social voices out there, you'll notice that they speak to every platform differently. And what's cool for us is that we could see it between Instagram and Facebook. I mean, those are two very different platforms, and they're social in their own right and used in different ways. And so seeing some of the best social media, media companies in social do what they do, it's very impressive. So our hope is absolutely, first of all, there's always going to be different tools, different technology, and to your point earlier, different audiences that are certainly there, and that should be taken into account. But comparing Facebook to an Instagram is in many ways night and day. I think that you should have different teams if possible, and hopefully, again, the business model in the background that we're working on to perfect helps you get there, where it actually makes economic sense for you to have an Instagram team, a Facebook team separately.
Well, also,
boringly, I fully agree. But what you mentioned before is the proximity of the fan at home to the event. I think that for me is key, and that is really what is changing. And you can't, in my experience, you can't hear the voice of your audience when you're listening to multiple channels at once and you're trying to follow multiple conversations at the same time. So I think it's important to have that dedicated role per platform.
I always think one of the other challenges, I know you faced this, I was watching a TV show the other day and it was a comedy, and someone was using Facebook and they're like, "Oh, you're old." So I think one of the challenges for everybody is to make sure you're speaking in a right way to the person you're trying to speak to, right? So that if you have one person who's in charge of social and they're 48 years old and they're trying to create content that's going to attract or be at least attractive to someone who's 15 or 16, it's probably not going to go over too well. So I mean, how do you kind of deal with your audience is not just one type of viewer. You're not CBS watching NCIS or some sort of show like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the power of our platform, specifically when it comes to insights. Every publisher on our platform has the ability to go to their page insights and understand very clearly who is consuming their content. And what you'll notice is that, no question about it, different media companies have different audiences. And even when you look at some of the big sports events that have been streamed on Facebook, what we've found is that you're looking over 50% of the audience are millennial. And if you take those same events and look at television, it's about 15 to 20% of their audience being millennial. And we still have huge numbers because, again, we're reaching people who, right now, being that watch is so new, they did not have the intent of coming to the platform to watch these events. So they're really just getting hit by the content. But the people who are actually staying and consuming are very young. And I think, again, it's going to go to the different content that you put on the platform. If we look at something that has an older audience, I think that you're going to find that their audience is going to be older. So if we take Dr. Phil in the U.S. and put him on, I imagine he would probably have a very different audience than some of the big-time influencers who are rising in stardom, like Dude Perfect and Whistle Sports and different partners like that. So I think it's important, just to your point, know who your audience is. We give you the tools to be able to do that. Once you have that information, you should be thinking in your production who you're speaking to.
I guess the good news is that the beauty of social media is that if you manage to connect to someone who's 16 or 17 and they start to talk about that conversation with their friends, then the conversation around the event does become naturally suited to their age group and to their interests.
I mean, the whole social element. I mean, whoever is consuming the content typically is going to share it. I mean, that's the biggest affirmation that they have a passion for what they're consuming. And once that happens, then suddenly their social sphere becomes a part of that group. And when you go through Facebook's algorithm, it's always different. I mean, it's going to be different for everyone based on all of the different things that you've consumed in the past, the pages that you've liked, what your friends are consuming, your family's consuming. It's always going to be very different, down to the extent that you're watching a video and there's an advertisement in the video. The ad you see is going to be very different than the ad anyone else will see. I mean, it's a very targeted, data-specific platform. So yeah, Yeah, I think what you'll find is that it's pretty understood, and as we're programming Watch, by the way, we are very much taken into account to make sure that we're representing all the people who are coming on the platform. I think it's fair to say in the U.S. as the example, we have everyone on the platform. I mean, literally 80% of America, I believe, is on Facebook every month. So we need to make sure that there's content there that's going to reach all the different age groups and make sure that they're going to want to come back and consume more.
So just how does somebody in the audience who may want to get engaged with the Watch platform, what do they have to do? What steps does someone have to take to become part of Watch? If you will?
Move to the U.S. Don't worry, we'll move to you before you move to us. Our plan is we have global aspirations. We are very much a global company. For a lot of reasons, it made sense to start and test in the U.S. But our intent is for this to be an experience that we get our lessons and we roll out to the rest of the world. So as far as if you are in the U.S., how do you reach it? You go on your phone, you go to the Facebook app. At the very bottom of the screen, there's a big video button, like a screen, like a TV. You click that, and it takes you into this whole new experience. There's 2 tabs in this experience for now. On the left hand, the tab that's on the left is basically Discovery. That's where all the content is going to be featured. So we have, if there's a live sports event, right up there is where you'll see the live sports event unfolding. But as you go down, you'll see different categories, content your friends are watching, not sports, but like lifestyle and comedy and different things like that. On the right-hand side, if you click there, it goes to, it's in essence like a DVR. It's content that you would like or you have followed in the past that is now being sent to you so you can consume it at a later date. So that's, it's very simple. It's a click away. So as we roll it out, hopefully everyone will be much more familiar with it.
So putting on your hat, last question as far as things that people do wrong on social media. So other than a certain political leader in the United States. So what do you see as some of the common mistakes that are done on social media that you kind of go, what were you thinking, or that's just not going to work? Or is anything a game?
Well, whenever I get a resume, the first thing I do is look at their Facebook page. So I think right now it's such a era of experimentation to figure out what works, what doesn't work. I think the audience is very forgiving, honestly. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like from my perspective, what are the 2 most dangerous things? One of them is, by the way, piracy, which we're investing heavily to support the rights holders, and the fact that we're working with the leagues ourselves. I mean, we have skin in this game. We do not want to see that occur on our platform. But in addition to that, we want people to feel comfortable and not feel that they're getting pressured, that they're getting bullied, that they're having an experience that makes them feel poorly. And so for that, there's moderation tools that we provide to all of the media companies that are able to, go through comments and make sure that it's a good experience. And large in part, it is very much so because, again, Facebook, it's your real identity. You can't hide. It's your name associated with to it. So, fortunately, we haven't had some of the issues that we've seen where there's major concerns about bullying.
Johannes, from your personal experience, either personal experience, things you've seen, or just professionally, as far as mistakes? With
broadcasters, it's a new thing, and that shouldn't be underestimated. While linear live format for football match works perfectly on TV, it might not be the best thing to just push that to your news feed. And the second thing that I've seen where people have been disappointed with what they tried on social media is that they haven't invested enough into community management. So you need to, the platform, Facebook itself is not interactive. It's your team that is interactive and that's speaking with your fans. And I think that is a crucial point that a lot of people need to take into consideration because it doesn't do itself.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Guilty of this myself with SVG, but if you can go a week and a half without posting something and you kind of fly by and you go, wait a second, and you go to the feed and you're like, it's like walking into like an old dusty old dead town. You're kind of like, why isn't someone paying attention to this? And if they're not paying attention to it, why should you pay attention to it?
Exactly.
Great, excellent. Well, okay, we're going to break up there because obviously people have cocktails to get to in various places. If you have any questions or comments, come on up and talk to our gentleman up here, but we're not taking questions publicly. But thank you, both of you, for your time today.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Quick round of applause. And tomorrow, be sure to join me here tomorrow at 11:10. I'm going to have a conversation with Alex Rice from Perform about the DAZN platform, as well as Ali Russell from Formula E. And we're going to just talk about the federation and agency perspectives on some of the new technologies. So thanks for coming out.